Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week's edition of the WrestleWatch podcast, your only podcast for talking about free agency in the world of professional wrestling. I'm Ryan.
And I am Doug. Hello, everybody. Ryan, how's your week been?
It's been busy. I'm out on the road again for work, so I'm traveling around. I'm not going to say where, but I'm traveling around for work. So I've been very busy and tired. This is a day off for me, so I'm happy to have time to possibly at some point watch any wrestling that's happened over the past week. I've not watched anything in the past week, so if anything happened, I would love to be spoiled about it on this week's podcast.
Yes. Well, this week I would say there's two things you need to go out of your way to watch in the world of AEW. One is the obviously the Kyle Fletcher Dustin Rhodes match, which Dave went 5 on. If you have not heard, watch that. And then you had the Moxley Hangman rematch. Everyone banned from ringside on Dynamite. That was also very good. I liked it more than the All In match, but that's just because that was
My
more my style.
my big question is, did everybody actually what did everybody actually not come around ringside? Did anybody interfere at all or try to interfere?
Yes, someone did.
See,
and
that's dumb. I'm
but
sorry, that's just bad. That's bad booking.
it
I'm just
was
gonna say
I
it.
was not a fan of it, but I will say this, and because that was also my issue with the All In match is that you had Brian Danielson running in and throwing throwing running knees and stuff. It was you had everyone at ringside for that one. This one is a little less bad, and the only people that did do a run in, and it didn't interfere with the finish first of all, and it was
Nah,
people.
it's just like if the rule is there's no everybody's banned from ringside, and if somebody comes ringside and tries to interfere, automatic
Yeah,
DQ.
there was
That should be
well,
the end of the match, right?
there was a ref bump, so in
Oh,
that regard.
so come on. What
But
is
but
this?
but I'll say this: I would say the my issue with that when they did it at All In was, you're trying to establish this new champion, and it didn't look great when Hangman had this big win, but he did it with other people coming in who had obviously Brian Danielson with the blue tiger mask coming in, and people on his side. At least this time, nobody really came to help Mox other than Darby, and Darby wasn't involved with anyone in the match. He was fighting people on the outside and did a
But
dive off
that's
the
what happened.
balcony.
But that's what happened in the all-in match was that nobody actually attacked Mox.
It still was it just felt like a lot more. I think the optics of Danielson being in the
But
ring,
if
in the
that's your
actual ring.
optics, if that's your optics, then like it's the same thing. It sounds like with the Chicago match because like it was supposed to be. That's what people were talking up
Yeah,
as the
no,
match that was going to solidify Hangman as the champ to put no doubt on it because he's going to win a clean wrestling match. And it sounds like it was not that. So
it,
I questioned the why they booked this match then. But
it,
that's
you're
as
right.
somebody that has not watched the match. I will
You,
say that.
but
But
even
like
not watching
if
it, you're
the
right. Even
yeah, if
not
that's
watching
the
it, you
point
are
of the
correct.
match, if that's the point of the match, then they didn't do what they were supposed to do, and they just extended a feud that didn't need to be extended. Essentially,
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like.
you're right. Then this was a situation where it did not do what it needed to do in establishing Mox by winning clean. It was better
Establishing Hangman, you mean? You
establishing
mean?
Hangman. Yes, sorry, thank
Yeah.
you. It was more clean. And the optics of nobody getting in the ring on Hangman's side helped. Whereas, everyone just has that vivid memory of Danielson in the ring in the Blue Panther mask from All In. That's just in your head when you think about that match. At least with this one, literally nobody got in the ring from that would be considered Hangman's side. And the only person who was even somewhat remotely involved on Hangman's side was Darby, and he just did a stage dive on the Death Riders. So in that sense, it was better, but it was very clearly just a match to further carry on the Mox Darby storyline. But you're right.
I
It should
I
not have
think
been that.
yeah, I think that like this past month, like they could have just cut all this out and just gone straight to Mox and Darby, and then have Hangman actually be a world champion solidified, and not act like there was anything wrong with the way that Texas. I mean, it's a Texas death match. It's a no DQ match. It's okay if people interfered. People interfered on both sides. Like nobody attacked anybody. Nobody attacked Moxley for Hangman. So it's like if you were to just like I'm somebody that's like a little negative about continuing the Hangman Mox feud. So, uh, but that's neither here nor there about WrestleWatch,
Yes.
in particular. So this week we wanted to do a quick look at the tracker. Wanted to chat about Ace Austin's potential. We had the WWE tryouts in New Jersey, which we had some news about a few talents that either were there or WWE might have had an eye on that might have been showing up other places instead. There's a little talk this week about LA Knight and Cody Rhodes, and also speaking of, I guess we could round it back, coming back around at the end, talking about something that you wanted to mention was about the current champions in AEW in particular, about, in your view, currently now, no flight risk as you see it of the current AEW championship crop. I wanted to also do a counterfactual on that, possibly looking at the WWE one to see if you think that maybe both sides of the divide have that currently with their top champs. But first, yeah, let's do a quick look at one movement that we had on the tracker past week was Ace Austin being upgraded from a possible to a probable jump. This is due to a few people saying that WWE have interest in him. Do you think that he will be ending up anywhere except for like an NXT deal? But what do you think about that?
Ace Austin has always to me felt like someone who would fit in perfectly fine in modern NXT. I could see that. He's a pretty good guy. A pretty good talent. I've seen him on the indies for man, when was the first time I saw him? Probably like 2017. Does that sound about right? And he's solid. He kind of he always reminded me of like Robbie Eagles in the sense, just the way he
Mhm.
works. Um, I think he's a good talent, and I think he's someone that could do well. I don't know that he's gonna break out above NXT. I think that he's definitely
Mhm.
he feels like an NXT guy through and through. But I absolutely could see why someone would be interested in him, and so I think moving him up seems likely. So he's going from possible to probable.
Yes, indeed. So if we look at the tracker, if you have it up for yourself to review, was there anybody else on the tracker that you wanted to do a pit stop on before we move on to some news of the week?
Yeah, there is. I
Um,
mean, I just want to say, and I'll tie this in because I
okay.
wanted to do a quick look at the tracker because, um, as I'm looking, we're definitely into this zone of, things aren't necessarily moving much in terms of the big jumps anymore, at least currently.
Mhm.
When I look at the AEW to WWE pipeline that has been, a bit of a talking point the last year or so, there's not really anyone that's jumping out. I mean, at the tracker right now, obviously, I think that Danhausen's one we've been talking about forever, but he's not really you know, a big jump if that's going to be the case. The only other one would be Private Party.
Mhm.
And Private Party, I could absolutely see it being a jump, but they were like a lower card tag team that occasionally got a push. They got a slight title reign that nobody really cared about. Uh, but there's not really any of these massive jumps. And then when I take a look at the champions in AEW right now,
Can I
um,
can I just can I just say about Private Party that I think
sure,
that with
sure, sure.
them, that they were originally billed as a big deal within like the ranks of the indie talent that AEW was acquiring at the launch. They had, upset wins that surprised people with, like with the Young Bucks. And it just kind of honestly, to be quite honest, I think that like if you look back on it, I think that they're a situation that if they did end up in NXT, I know that the PC crowd will love to chant Tony fumbled about anybody. However, potentially might have been a fumble. What do you think about that?
I don't know because I feel like they just never improved. And then
Hmm.
because of that, they weren't really catching on. And I don't know that they're necessarily going to improve any further beyond this point. And
Hmm.
when I look at, I mean, if we want to talk about the Tony
Yeah,
Fumble
we can.
chance. I just want
Yeah,
to talk
yeah.
about the Tony Fumble chance real quick. I don't know that there's anyone else on this tracker that I would even consider a legitimate Tony Fumble. I mean, what are they going to chant? Like, if Chris Jericho shows up in NXT, are we going to get Tony Fumble chance? I mean,
Yeah,
I would
I don't
laugh.
think that I don't think that anybody else on the tracker right now that's a AEW person. Right now on the tracker, just for reference, we have Danhausen as a probable. We have Private Party as possible. Unlikely, we have Deanna Purrazzo, and down in remote we have Chris Jericho and Saraya for that matter too. Yeah, I don't think that any of them, other than Private, I would say that Private Party is the most. I would say that they would fit the definition of actually fumbled closest of any of those.
Yeah.
Whether or not I think that it's a fumble, I think that's debatable. Personally, I think that they could have used them more in the direction of the tag division. I think that the tag division didn't get developed as much as they thought it would be.
Have you seen their social media lately, though? I will say this:
Somebody's yoked right now, I believe,
they
is the term.
they both are.
Yeah.
They both are looking real big. So, I mean, they're putting in the work in the gym, and they're looking in better shape than they ever have. So, I mean, it's a lot of. I mean, I'm seeing some
I would.
that they're looking to make a jump.
Yeah, or maybe, if they were to stay, it could be an interesting storyline with Hurt Syndicate if they came back and we're like, no, now we're jacked.
And I would probably
Try to
embrace that.
try to yeah,
It's
try to
something
survive
different.
five with the Private Party.
Yeah, it's something different with them. I mean, because that's the
Yeah.
thing. They never really evolved. They're the exact same act today that they were, in 2019 when they
Well,
first
I
came in.
mean, Isaiah does sounds.
Yes. Okay.
That's different.
Sure.
um but I suppose like we could do a transition point here and do the discussion for that was thought about doing later in the episode, but we could do it now
Yeah.
of specifically you were speaking about the current AEW championship crop that you feel like right now, if I'm not mistaken how I'm phrasing this, you feel like there is nobody that is currently an AEW champion that you would see as a potential jump with in like what time frame do you feel like?
I would say I don't think I'll say this. Every single person in AEW right now, I think is somebody that is either not going to be someone that WWE would be interested in, or they are someone that I firmly believe that under no circumstances Tony Khan going to be outbid for them. I
Okay.
think I
How about, yeah, go ahead.
so I'm going to just kind of run through these and see if
Yeah,
you agree.
let's run through them. Yeah, like, so first off, we have Mr. Hangman himself. Your two questions there that you set up as the two discussion points are, do you think that WWE would have interest in bringing in Hangman Adam Page?
Yes, I think WWE would absolutely be interested in bringing him in. However, I think we need to then look at let's before we start talking about the bidding war of that. Uh, Obviously, Hangman is going to have some issues with people in WWE currently, uh, namely one Phil Brooks. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is that he is. Oh, sorry, someone in the background.
No.
Oh, I'm hearing an echo, I think, or someone talking. Okay, anyway, so that's the first thing. And then the other thing is when
I'm in like a hotel lobby.
oh, okay. I think I'm just hearing
Yeah.
it's fine. It's not a big deal. Anyway, so continuing on, I do think that he is someone that Tony Khan is absolutely not going to let go without a fight. Tony Khan is going to fight. He's going to be, he will not, this is similar to what we had with Okada during the Okada bidding war when we was looking at whether you go to WWE or AEW for money. The rumor, the discussion was that Tony Khan will not be outbid for Okada. I think Tony Khan will not be outbid for Hangman Page. The only reason that Hangman is going to go to WWE is if he wants to take less money just to go to WWE. And that does not sound like something that Hangman would do for a variety of reasons.
So two things that I wanted to say about that is one, how about we also integrate into there if the person actually has interest in jumping? Because like right now, the discussion sounds very top down rather than talent up. But the second thing I would point out is that I think that for somebody of the, uh, I think that a misunderstanding that people have about WWE money is about endorsements and ancillary deals.
Hmm.
Is that you might not get upfront on like the guaranteed might not be as much, but the bonuses might become more money than what AEW can offer. So like look at somebody like Cody Rhodes. He is making far more money with all the bonuses essentially than AEW could offer him right now
Sure.
because he is a top level talent, right? He's doing all different kinds of promotion stuff. He's making buttload of money on merch, above the point where it's above the guaranteed rate for his merch contract. So I would say that that's a discussion point to possibly think about with Hangman. There is, do you think that he would be above the fold essentially
Right.
when we're
Well,
when we're thinking about something like that,
and then
or
for
any of
that
these
though,
talent that are being discussed?
yeah, and then for that though, obviously that would be also a situation where they would need to allow him to do that because the way the bucket system works, as it's been, divided, been designed, you know, WWE has the ability to kind of control in some ways how much the talent's getting booked and how often they're, going to get above that bucket level that they would to get above their guarantee. I'm not saying that the Hangman wouldn't be one of the people who could potentially do that, like Cody is, but obviously a mid carder is not necessarily getting that. So, do I think Hangman is potentially a top level main event potential talent in WWE? Sure, I do. I really don't think he's going anywhere, though. I think that he is someone who's going to be sticking around for a while. I know when the Elite re-signed, obviously they said they were going to do it all together. Kenny, the Bucks, and Hangman. They kind of unionized in that regard to sync up their contracts, and they, allegedly voted on it, but they did say it was not unanimous. Uh, but I got the impression that it wasn't Hangman who was the holdout. I could be wrong. So for that, I don't think that Hangman is a flight risk from AEW.
How about then we look at one Kazuchika Okada? I think that the first question, I think that the most important question to ask first is if Okada would have interest, and then from there to devolve into um, if WWE would have interest either.
Sure, we could do it that way. So yes, I think Kazuchika Okada would have interest in going to WWE. And the reason I say that is because he had interest before. Like he had his Barry Bloom, he had him kind of negotiating back and forth between WWE and AEW. AEW gave the better offer, so he went to AEW. So yeah, I don't think that's an issue at all. I think that he would be interested.
And then on that factor, then do you think that there is the risk then essentially of him leaving?
I don't. Um, I don't because I first of all I think Tony Khan's going to pay him well. I think he's comfortable where he's at, and I don't. In the same way, in the way that we talked about Hangman kind of being a guaranteed top line main event guy, pretty safe. I think that he would get a main level push. I don't know how they would do with Okada in WWE. Um, I especially when you take a look at someone like Shinsuke Nakamura and how he was kind of presented. And Nakamura is someone who spoke English very well. He speaks English very well, especially for a non-English speaker. And it's in a company where, obviously that's a pretty heavy focus and has been for a while. And I don't know that Okada is someone who carries himself in a way that the WWE fan base would uh, attract themselves to in the way that Shinsuke Nakamura does. Shinsuke Nakamura is a very animated character, charisma off the wall. Okada is more subdued, and I don't know that he would work as well in that environment. And I think he probably knows that. I think he knows that he fits in pretty well here. And let's be honest, they've been treating him very, very well. Not that that necessarily matters, but I do think that they've kind of demonstrated that what they're doing with him is working.
So let's move on to the one that I kind of disagree with you on.
Okay. I think I know who
Uh,
it's going to be.
well, I'm just going down the list, so it's Kyle Fletcher's next.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
I didn't know there was a
so
list.
It's just the champions list, yeah.
Okay.
And it's going in order of how it's listed. So he just won the TNT championship off Dustin Rhodes, who, if we remember correctly, just re-signed with AEW for like a 5-year deal or something like that. So he is absolutely zero flight risk. He intends to retire with AEW, it seems like, and transition as he already is a coach there and a producer and things like that. So Dustin Rhodes is the least flight risk person we have discussed so far.
Yes.
I will just say that. And so that means that by default, then Kyle Fletcher is more of a flight risk. And I would add that, especially given his age, given his yokeification of recently, um, given the potential that maybe looking at AEW's main event scene by the time that his contract will lapse. I believe that he started with AEW in 2022. Of course, had some well, not as much him, but Mark Davis had some injury troubles that kept Fletcher out a little bit, and then they had to transition him to a singles guy, and it worked, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But he's 26 right now, started in 2022. That means that in theory, on a 3-year deal, he's coming up to the point where you have to start looking at it like, oh, maybe, what's going to happen next with him. So um, that's where I'm coming from, is looking at the main event scene right now. It's kind of like, okay, can Fletcher is Fletcher a main event guy now? Mm, not quite. He's an upper mid carder definitely. But like if you have a tag match that's, like a him and Takeshita versus somebody, if that team is going to lose, Fletcher's taking the pin, right? So he's not exactly, I mean, other than right now where he's a champion, in AW, so maybe not, you can not put him in those
Yeah.
situations,
I, w-
but
I would
still,
say
you
this
get where I'm
Thursday.
going with this.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say this Thursday that's alternated. I think that Kyle Fletcher is now going to be presented a step above Takeshita, just because by nature of being a champion, a singles champion. Um, but Takeshita might be winning the G1, so it's a weird situation. Um, so now we're looking at Kyle Fletcher, and so we'll start again. Would Kyle Fletcher be interested in going to WWE? Uh, I think he would consider it. However, I firmly believe, and this is, I would say, more than anyone else on the entire AEW roster, in terms of young talent on the bench that are going to be main eventers in this company one day. Um, I think that Kyle Fletcher is the best lock. I think more so than even Takeshita. And because of that, I think that Tony Khan will probably fight tooth and nail to keep him and do just about anything he can to keep him. Um, and I don't necessarily get the impression that Fletcher is someone who is, you know, someone who's I don't get the impression that he's someone who's going to take less money just because he wants to have a WrestleMania moment. I don't get that vibe with him. I've never gotten that vibe with him. He's come up on the UK Indies uh, in a situation. I mean, he saw what happened with that. He's very close with Osprey. I'm guessing they have very similar views on the industry. And if I had to guess, I would say he's not going anywhere. At least he's going to sign another deal. I think. I don't think that he is a flight risk. I really don't.
Okay. Well, he's someone that like I think I think that there's a log jam at the top of the men's division with for potential title holders, which I think is partially why Fletcher is like a TNT champion,
Mhm.
which some are saying, oh yeah, that's going to elevate the belt, but like I've also seen the opposite view, which is like, oh no, you've pushed Fletcher down to the TNT scene, so.
Yeah. And it's and
Uh,
it's it's really unfortunate what happened to Adam Cole, obviously. This guy's had concussions left and right, but from a booking standpoint, uh, Adam Cole was always a really difficult person to book in this company just because he was kind of stuck in between being a main event act and being a mid carder. Like he just didn't really fit. He didn't have a fit in the company. So in a lot of ways, him being taken out just makes the booking a little bit easier, even if it is a tragic reason. Um, but it does. So I think that maybe could help Kyle Fletcher be elevated a little bit more, just because Adam Cole's he's kind of tough. He's similar to
Well, I
Daniel
think,
Garcia.
well, I think, well, I think that Fletcher would have been champion before now if Cole hadn't been injured. So that's where I disagree. Is like that Adam Cole's injury actually made his winning of the TNT belt get delayed.
It got delayed, but I do think that Adam Cole still would have been around. And I don't know how you work Adam Cole because I don't know if he would be out of the picture completely. Would an Adam Cole Kyle Fletcher feud be continuing on? Um, I don't know where you would go with Adam Cole after that. So I kind of think it might.
You
And
would do trios probably because that's where they're heading with that group.
yeah, I guess they could do that. Yeah,
Or he would be a challenger, or he'd be a challenger for Okada.
and yeah, they could do that. And I think right now though, I think Kyle Fletcher is in a situation where he's gonna be I think he's better off now than he ever has been, and I think that they're going to give him a good push. I think this is going to be a good title run for him, and I think it's probably the first time the TNT title has had a solid champion that perhaps feels like they're going to do something with in quite a while. So, we'll see where this goes.
Looking at both sets of tag champions, Hurt Syndicate, I think that we can just like brush that aside because
Yeah,
they're not a flight risk currently.
yeah.
Um,
I don't
I
know.
mean, in the future, I think definitely they could leave. But like in the short term, they're not going anywhere. Um, and then for the trios, you're saying Samoa Joe, Will Hobbs, and Shibata. I think Shibata, we can just take him off the conversation. Um, the other two, you do not see any risk of them being interested in going to WWE. I think that that's the key way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think they'll start with Samoa Joe since I think he's the easier one. Um, Obviously he's been someone who's been bouncing around back and forth. A lot of weird history with him just because there's been talks of injuries. He can't go anymore. He can wrestle again. Oh, he can't wrestle. He uh, got released, and then there was talk of him coming back, and then he came back. Then he ended up going to AEW. Just a weird story with him. And I think at this point in his career, um, I think he's I think his big singles runs are over. He's on, the wrong side of 40 at this point. He's probably going to settle in where he's at. If he does go back to WWE, I don't necessarily see him in an in-ring capacity. So I think he's finishing out his in-ring career here. Uh, so I don't see him jumping. Shibata, I don't think and we said he's not going anywhere. I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think WWE is interested in him. And then Powerhouse Hobbs. I feel like if he was gonna, I feel like he's resigned already once before, and there was like no talk of him potentially
He
going to WWE.
he's definitely re-signed already at one point. He
Yeah,
started with AEW in 2020.
yeah, and when he resigned, there was like very very little talk of him even potentially jumping, and then he just resigned. So there's not been any discussion of him going or any interest from WWE's end on him, and and once again I think he's probably a little bit older than someone they would look to grab because he
I
is.
don't know about that. I mean, like Ethan Page got a title reign in NXT immediately, and he's older than Hobbs is
But
by
I
a
also
while.
feel like he's almost like a player coach in that role. I don't know that Hobbs is a player coach type.
No, but I think that he fits the mold of what like WWE is looking for in somebody, right?
I don't know if that. Oh, if someone there. Okay, Ethan Page. Would you be surprised if Ethan Page never goes to the main roster?
Um, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if he never does that full time, but like at the same time, like I don't think that he's concerned about that.
I don't think it is either. I think that they signed him with the intention that he was going to be kind of a Sean Spears type who would just kind of hang out around NXT and be a veteran player coach. And I don't think Powerhouse Hobbs is a player coach. And for that reason, I don't think that he's someone that they would sign to potentially be a main roster player because I think he's too old for that. So I think if he was someone that they were going to really invest in to be a main event player in WWE, I think they'd want someone a little bit younger. There's obviously been exceptions. You have like LA Knight, but LA Knight's also been, a veteran guy that's been around for, forever. Hobbs really didn't pop up until, AEW Dark, and he was just found there. So I don't necessarily see him being a big flight risk. If I had to guess right now, I don't think he would ever go on our when his contract's up on our tier list. I don't see him going above possible, and that's the highest, and that's a big stretch. Even I think he's an unlikely one at most. So I don't think he's a flight risk.
Looking at the women's champions, um, we have Tony Storm and Mercedes Moné. I think that one of them is definitely a flight risk. Um, which one?
Yeah, I was gonna say, which one are you referring to?
I mean, which one do you think it is?
I
I
think
think it's
okay,
obvious which one is.
okay. So here's the thing. I think Mercedes Monet, obviously, people say like, oh, she's eventually going back. Like people keep saying that's a reoccurring theme. Um, I don't know that I feel that way as much anymore, just because the talk is that, Sean Ross Sapp was very, very sure that she's gonna resign, and which is surprising to me. But I trust Sean Ross Sapp on this stuff, and he's usually not one who's going to be that sure about things like that. Did not It does not seem that she is in a hurry to go back to WWE, and I don't think she's going to. And I think she is going to resign. Will she eventually go back to WWE? Yeah. I don't think it's anytime soon, and I certainly don't think it's anytime. I don't. I will be surprised at this point if she doesn't resign for at least one more contract. Was Mercedes Monet the person you were talking about?
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Okay. Well,
I don't think that Tony Storm is any sort of flight risk at the end of the current contract.
because I'll be honest, I don't think she is either. But I think WWE is going to take a crack at her after this success.
They'll act like they're interested, but I don't think that they would know what to do with her. Because like the thing that has worked for her in the system at AEW is that AEW's creative process has allowed for her to do things that WWE might not allow for with how they structure the creative process. Whereas I think like somebody like we were talking before about Hangman or Kyle Fletcher, I think that their creative would fit in with WWE style a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. I think so. And I think the reason I brought up this whole segment in the first place is because I feel like so often we talk about, certain talent that, hey, they're going to get a title run and they'll stick around. I know that was kind of the big thing with Daniel Garcia. There was dancing around whether or not he was resigning while he was still kind of in that TNT title mix. We saw that a bit with certain tournaments with Ricky Starks and whether or not, and when he was the tag team champion, kind of holding that for a while, and whether or not he was going to stay. It just feels like for the first time in a long time, all the AEW champions are people that we're not necessarily having any jumping discussions about or potential jumping discussions about. I don't think that's happened ever.
How
So,
about just for reference, just to thonk on this, if you could pull up for yourself, looking at the WWE champions right now, and thinking about specifically about the end of their current contract, wherever that may be,
okay.
for these talent. Okay, uh,
And to
do
be fair,
you?
and when you read off these names, I just want to make it clear to everyone, I've not looked at the champions. I'm not exactly 100% sure on all the champions are, so it'll be interesting to as we go through these.
Yeah, so and we can do this a little quicker.
Sure.
And but like I would phrase it again as or frame it as looking at if you think that the end of the contract that they're currently on, some of them are longer than others because we know that they're a little bit longer than others, such as like Gunther or Becky Lynch, for example, for just re-signing. Um, Thinking about at the end of their current contract, do you see potential of them leaving WWE?
Okay.
And what likelihood you would give that if you were to today put them on the tracker
And
or years from now, possibly in the
and
future?
and we should clarify that we are recording this at like 4 p.m. Eastern, uh, Saturday before SummerSlam. So this is anything discussion we're happening is before SummerSlam. So we don't know anything that happened there.
Gunther, he just resigned.
Yep. So I don't think he's a flight risk. I think that there could have been interest on AEW side for sure. I could definitely see them wanting to potentially reform Ring Kampf with Timothy
And
Thatcher
I'm
if he
not
was interested, but
and I'm
I don't.
not just to mention again because I think that there are some names on here that this would be the case for. I'm not saying go to AEW. I'm saying leave WWE.
That's fair. Okay, then I don't. Yeah, I
Uh,
don't think. I don't think Gunther is one of them.
Naomi.
No, I think she had her little fun run in TNA, and then she came home. I think she's very. This is what she always wanted, where she wanted to be in the first place. I don't, and I think she's getting presented better than she's wanted ever been presented.
Oh,
Your
within
mileage.
WWE, definitely. Yeah.
Yes,
This is
yeah,
the best
within
that they've ever presented her.
yeah,
Yeah.
your mileage may vary on how her
I think
matches
the
are and things
TNA
like that.
range, I think that during the TNA reign that like she was presented better, but like I think within WWE, as far as that goes, I think that this is the best that they've ever presented her.
Yeah,
Like they're being serious about like pushing her, I feel
yeah,
like.
you could argue that TNA pushed her as like the top act in the whole company.
I agree. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that like that was my feeling when she came back to WWE was like I was like I don't know about this. I'm worried that they're not going to push her as much as like TNA is. And I was like, if she wants to, have like a big push and be like a main eventer and stuff like that, I would have said to stay in TNA. But obviously, things have changed
yeah.
for
So
her in
exactly.
WWE. So good for her.
Yeah. So I think
Um,
she's sticking around. Yeah.
Dirty Dom.
Um, no, I once again, he's a perfect example. He's a perfect example of what I'm talking about here because he's a guy that I think is getting presented very well in WWE. There's even talk of him eventually becoming the Triple H champ, the Mega Champion.
Okay.
And I don't think there would be any interest from AEW side, maybe a little interest, and that would be the
Um,
only other considerable place that I could really
yeah.
see him. Uh,
Uh, Becky Lynch at the end of her current contract, which we don't know the length of, but she just resigned.
Yeah, she just resigned. I mean, was there potential discussion before an option of possibility? Sure, but
Yeah.
not any. She just resigned, so I'm sure it was for a considerable length, unless we hear otherwise.
She'll be clearly in. She'll be well into her 40s by the time that this contract ends. Yeah.
Yeah, could she leave at that point? Sure, I suppose, but that's such a far way out that I would say it's silly to call her a flight
Yeah.
risk now, even consider it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finn Balor and JD McDonough.
Um.
Finn will
No, so
probably be he's I think he signed like a 5-year deal this time too. So he'll be like 50.
yeah, and I would say the same thing with Finn. It's like, you know, last time when he was before his contract was signed, sure,
You think this is the
I
last
thought
one,
about.
essentially?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think if he was going to do it, he would have. No, I shouldn't
Yeah.
say that. He could do it. He could jump later, but once again, it's 5 years. And JD McDonough, I don't think that there's going to be any
Yeah.
interest at all.
Let's do a two for on this next one. John Cena. No. The answer is no.
Yeah, he's
So
retiring.
let's make it more interesting. Cody Rhodes.
Okay, so here's Cody Rhodes made some interesting comments. I'm not going to go into all his comments on the interview, but he definitely talked about his time in AEW and alluded to why he left in a way that was more it was more than he'd ever said. I'll just say it that way. He didn't actually go into specifics, but he talked about feeling disrespected. There was after he said that there was people in the know that said that a lot of it had to do with money and specifically, when CM Punk came in and when Bryan Danielson came in and they were making more money than Cody and Cody felt that was off. Um, and then there was talk when in the Young Bucks book about when they were trying to decide where to go, whether to go to WWE or launch AEW. Cody was the last person to really kind of decide, yes, let's do this. let's go to AEW. And one of the things that was discussed and what things that Cody asked for is, and the Elite, I should say, was ownership in the company in AEW. They have an ownership stake. And that was something that Tony Khan would not budge on. And they never got that. So there's always been this reoccurring talk of, will Cody ever go back to AEW? Some people think, it's inevitable. It's not if, but when. And it's just, and a lot of this is just, Cody is a smart guy who knows when it's time to leave the territory. And then when the time is right, he'll do that, even if it's, 10 years from now. He's got a lot, I'm sure he's not going to be quitting anytime soon. So that's potential. I think that he's someone who will eventually, I could absolutely see him eventually going back to AEW one day. However, I brought this up the other day, and it's this idea that Cody, I think he likes being someone who just shakes things up and does something just to prove that he can do it. He left WWE the first time to bet on himself and prove that he was a bigger star than they thought he was. And he did that. He joined the Bullet Club, he launched AEW. He was, and obviously did the first All In. So he really, really takes pride in that. And you could tell that he's someone who still very, very much has his heart with AEW and takes pride in what he built there. And he'll say that I built that. I built that. He personally is taking a lot of pride in that. He has a big ego with regards to the launch of AEW. I do think though that going back to AEW that is an option, sure, if it makes sense. But I also think that he is someone who could, if he wanted to, grab a couple other bigger names and try to redo what he did with AEW and launch a new promotion. And maybe this time get some points on the package where it's where to say, maybe get some ownership stake. Maybe him and other names like CM Punk or anyone that would be a bigger name. If they want to go ahead and go out there, if they find another, I'm not even saying necessarily needs to be another billionaire, because right now it could be a media company. Because if you saw with what was it ESPN, the NFL just is going to be taking a 10% ownership in ESPN. So these media companies themselves can just kind of act as entities in and of themselves if they wanted to, and launch their own thing. That could be an option. And if we see something like that happen, I think it's easier now than ever because AEW has created the template. AEW has shown that you can create a challenger brand that is successful. So if AEW already did it, why wouldn't someone else just try to do it themselves? Especially in this environment where, media companies are looking for more and more content more than ever before. I mean, I was watching on ESPN the other day, I was watching Dodgeball. I mean, they will put anything on. So I think that this is, if they were going to do it, this could happen. This could happen soon.
Looking at the other champions, just to quickly get through those ones too. I don't think Tiffany Stratton at the end of her contract would willingly choose to leave WWE.
No, I don't think so either.
Same with Solo Sikoa. I don't think that he would willingly leave.
I don't even know that AEW or TN or any other company would necessarily be interested in him. Maybe a little bit, but
I think other companies would be interested in him, but I don't think that he would want to leave.
yeah. Well, it's like exactly. That's true. Yeah.
Julia.
Yeah. I think
that's your one. That's the one.
that
Depends on how they continue to book her.
And let's be honest.
She said some things already.
Anyone that has followed Julia's career for even just the past half a decade, forget her entire career, just the half decade. Like she is someone who is a habitual bridge burner and a habitual jumper from promotions. Whether it was Ice Ribbon to Stardom, Stardom to Marigold, and then Marigold to WWE. And I don't think that was necessarily the bridge burned, obviously, but she doesn't stay in one place long. So she's someone I absolutely could see jumping around again.
And then the other ones there is this is where I would say about the willingly thing that I just said. Dexter Lumis and Joe Gacy are the uh, SmackDown Tag Champs.
Yeah, I don't
I don't think they willingly would leave.
no, I don't think so. I
If
mean, one of
uh, yeah,
Loomis he was released at one point and then brought back, correct?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yes.
and during that time, he didn't really set up a lot of radar. He didn't the radars weren't going off for him. So I
Yeah.
don't think that's happened that anything's changed there. And then same with Joe Gacy. I don't see that. I think they both willingly stay. It's just whether or not they want to keep him around.
Yeah, and just wanted to quickly also mention that yeah, WWE had tryouts in New Jersey this past week. I feel like the only really notable name that I've seen come out that was there was Britt Vixen, who she previously had done work with AEW as kind of enhancement talent. It was kind of I believe she's also doing TJPW shows. Um, I don't know. Obviously, with a tryout, it could take a while until we find out if any kind of offer happened or anything of that sort. But I thought that was a notable name to come across the radar there.
She's grinding. She's always been grinding. So you got to give her respect. She would take dates wherever, worked a ton of different promotions, and I think this is just a situation where, someone finally, offered her something.
Yeah, I
Because
think she's gotten looks from plenty of companies over time, like AW, TNA, as referenced Japan as also taking a look at her. So if it works out for her with the tryout, then good that she'll get a long-term deal with somebody, I think.
hmm,
If it works out, but it's a tryout, so that doesn't mean that they'll actually sign anybody from it because it still sounds like they just haven't still signed anybody from that Europe tryout yet. So, um,
there's the resumes are just sitting on the desk.
and then there was somebody that you had mentioned was featured as a enhancement talent on AEW this past week in a squash match against Chris Statlander was Lena Cross. She's done some enhancement work recently in North America. She's an Australian wrestler, mostly does work in Sendai Girls in Japan. Recently did two enhancement matches for TNA on Explosion, which is their B show, and then on Collision with Chris Statlander. I think you had mentioned that WWE in the past had some interest in her.
Yeah, and yeah, she was also supposedly in talks with TNA. She dropped an indie booking to appear on Collision last night. Not last night, 2 nights ago, allegedly. Um, she looks, you know, like a great talent. But she's someone where I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing, uh, you know, some people fight over her now because she looks great. Um, just as a just as a person, as a presentation, she carries herself well. She's very tall. She's wrestled Statlander in a squash match, and she was taller than Statlander, and Statlander's pretty tall. So she, I could see why people are trying to go after her. We got TNA. She was on the TNA Explosion, which airs on Fridays, right?
Yeah, it's their B show that they record the air on Fridays. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was on that, and then she was on the Collision, and WWE has apparently had some interest in her too. She's wrestled, in Sendai Girls as well. So she's someone to keep an eye on, even if it's just on the periphery, because obviously she's not a huge name. I don't think she's anyone that you know we're going to see a gigantic bidding war over. But I think it's only a matter of time before someone picks her up.
One last thing that I wanted to mention for this week's episode was about the recently both TNA World Championships are now in the hands of NXT talent. We've also seen now two CMLL belts get handed over to AEW talent. Earlier, you mentioned the possibility, the rumor circulating right now that there's potential that WWE is looking to put the AAA Mega Championship on Dominic Mysterio. Um, how do you feel about these promotions that are secondary, I suppose, to these larger US promotions, putting championships on talent from the larger promotions? Do you think that there's any difference or distinction between any of these. I mean, TNA is a partner of WWE. They're not subsidiary. AAA is now a subsidiary of WWE, and CMLL is ostensibly a brotherly co cross promotion with AEW, supposed to be on the same level. So how do you feel about all these championship swaps going to the big US promotions?
So, what I will say right now with TNA, because TNA is obviously the biggest high profile one. And recently, at their Slammiversary show, it was noted that, you know, it didn't look great. It wasn't great optics for TNA because a lot of their talent lost. They lost pretty much all their major championships are on WWE or NXT talent at this point. Um, and a lot of people thought this was going to be Santana's crowning in New York in front of all these fans at the UBS Arena, and that just did not happen. Um, Now, I will say this: I understand that all of this, and the goal here is for TNA to eventually get some type of media rights deal where they can get some money. That's
And
the
then
end goal.
speaking of, I believe it was an Observer this week that Dave has heard that there have just been discussions with the CW and A&E, which, of course, as we know, CW currently airs
NXT.
NXT, and A&E has a bunch of WWE documentary kind of stuff, and that LFG essentially it's like the reboot of the NXT game show era show. So looks like that WWE might be doing some monopolistic practices to get TNA some negotiation wiggle room there. But it sounds like there have been discussions about that.
Yeah, and let's be honest, if that happens, I would not be stunned to find out that the new team, if they do get this media rights deal on CW or A&E, whatever, wherever it's at, it would not stun me to see it on Wednesday nights. Um, just to kind of another way to counter program AEW, and I think that that's one of the things that
Yeah,
WWE has done very well in using their smaller promotions to harm AEW. Now, you might say it's like, well, what
well,
is
what
this
about
worth?
Evolve? That's on Wednesdays. That's what
Yeah,
I'm thinking. What's going to happen to Evolve?
poor Evolve. Well, I mean, would it be completely crazy that they're just throwing everything on Wednesdays, just
I
throwing
think
everything at the wall?
I think it's possible that it's been discussed a bunch over time that there's the possibility that Collision might move off of Saturdays permanently and move to as Thursday as their permanent date. If that were to happen, I think that TNA would just stay on Thursdays,
Yeah,
and
that
then it would be Collision versus TNA as that battle. Because
yeah.
like I don't think that WWE. I think at this point their strategy still is we're going to throw the kitchen sink at the wall to try to disrupt AEW's schedule. So,
Hmm.
like for example, um, they put originally it was supposed to be Saturday night's main event versus All In, but then they were like, we're not going to move Saturday night's main event earlier. Let's just throw some NXT thing at it, and then they keep doing that with NXT, right? They just
Yeah.
threw NXT PLEs against um, against AEW pay-per-views. And the point is not that they think that it's going to beat AEW, but it's going to make people that are WWE ecosystem wrestling fans, uh, maybe some of them will just watch the NXT show and just forget maybe that AEW is on, or maybe they'll watch the NXT show first and then watch AEW later. Something like that could happen. Um, I think that TNA, if they're looking out for themselves as a promotion, will not want to play ball on that. They'll look at that and say, we're going to get trounced. We do not want to go up against Dynamite. That's silly. Like there are people that would probably watch both. Like I think that there would be crossover appeal for AEW fans if TNA was easily accessible to watch TNA. It's not exactly the same style, but it's I think a middle ground style towards like between like the sports presentation-y kind of AEW and the sports entertainment-y WWE. I think TNA is kind of in the middle at times, especially with the women's division. So That's my take on it, is that like if TNA is going to look at this, and I think that that's what they've been doing with, as you were discussing about the championships, they're trying to build up their brand ID enough to get this deal. And I don't think that TNA would, unless they're trying to sell themselves to WWE, I don't think that they would want to uh like hurt themselves with the deal that they're going to get for a national television deal, you know?
I do, but I also think that there is going to be a certain dollar amount where they just can't say no. Like if they get, I don't know, let's say I'm throwing a number.
Yeah,
Let's say they
if they
get
get if they
50
get
million a
even
year. Let's say they
if they
get
even
50
get
million.
the CW's deal for NXT, even if they got that deal, which I believe is around that range that you're just discussing, yeah, like I think that they would say yes.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of where it is right now. And I think and I don't really blame TNA in this regard. I mean, if they're gonna get a if WWE is genuinely going to help them get a TV deal that makes them solvent and actually a competitor, that's great. Um, I would wonder how much longer they would continue just kind of being WWE's punching bag after that. I would hope that they would. This isn't just what it is from now on, because I think that would not be great for a lot of reasons. But I wouldn't necessarily blame them for playing ball if that is ultimately the end goal here. And I think that is. I think that's what
Yeah,
this is all about.
I think that's what it's all about. It's like, Trick Williams is their Chris Jericho, you know,
Yeah.
like essentially is like, oh yeah, try to get a TV deal for ROH. Let's get them out to Jericho again. I think that that's kind of like the thought process for TNA right now. Is like, we want to get this TV deal. What's the way that we're getting some buzz is by working with WWE. Let's just lean into that even more and even more and even more. I think that it'll have diminishing returns at a point. Like as you mentioned, like I think the TNA fan, when I was reading online in a few different spaces, the reaction to Slammiversary, uh, people that were not as primary TNA fans loved the show. They thought it
Mhm.
was a really fun show. They thought that the title changes or lack thereof were good decisions in their opinion. But the people that are TNA fans were very displeased, both because of how Joe Hendry was used in that triple threat, where he had the boo boo of most boo boo faces ever. But that, yeah, Santana's moment, that was his moment, you know? And I think that, like, it worked out with Cody to make Cody wait a year, but I think that, it doesn't mean that that should be the template, you know?
No, I think we're at a situation now where um, TNA is just going to do what they need to do. But I do feel bad for the hardcore TNA fans, the ones who are just, dyed in the wool. We love TNA because this has got to not be fun for them.
Yeah. As far as AAA, how do you feel about them possibly putting the belt on Dominic Mysterio? Do you think that AAA is it feels like AAA is it's going to become a different promotion from what it was before. Like it will just have the name at this point, right?
Yeah, that's definitely what it seems like. And apparently, yesterday, August 1st, was the official day that WWE took over. Um, Here's the thing: I feel like AAA wasn't in a good position, like in a good space when it was bought. It sounds like they were already looking for sellers. They were looking for a way out. It wasn't in a good. It, things were not going great for AAA. So that one I kind of almost feel not as bad about. Like TNA, I felt like was getting a little bit momentum. I remember the great Osprey speedball match that happened during the Trinity Fatu run.
Yeah, like
T-
during the TNA relaunch era where Impact renamed itself, that like little period of 2023, 2024, leading up
yeah,
to Bound for Glory 24.
yeah, TNA was it was getting a little bit of buzz. AAA has not had buzz for at least 2 years. AAA has
Yeah, I would
been
say since the Kenny reign,
yeah, like
essentially, and transitioning into Vikingo's reign.
yeah, like the last truly great AAA match was probably what the Blue Demon Jr. versus Dr. Wagner Jr. The one where the bloodbath at the Triple Mania, and that was maybe what 4 or 5 years ago, maybe not that long, but yeah. So it's not great. It's
What do
not
you think
great.
about what do you think about Mercedes Moné and MJF taking CMLL titles though.
So here's the thing with that. I think that that's a wait and see. And the reason I'll say that is I feel like at least with TNA it's different because titles in Lucha are very different, especially in CMLL, where it's a company that, not to say they don't value their titles, but titles in Lucha in general are kind of secondary to masks. And it's always kind of just how it's been culturally. But I do think that I want to wait and see where this is going because I do think at this particular point in time, I do think that this is the triple CMLL and AEW seem to have a pretty good relationship. I don't necessarily think this is a situation where uh, AEW is just steamrolling CMLL. It seems like CMLL is getting something out of this. And frankly, this seems to be kind of them playing defense after what happened with AAA and trying to just make sure that they're, protected as well as they can be. I don't see this as being the same thing, especially when MJF and Mercedes Moné are two of the biggest stars in AEW, and Trick Williams is a developmental guy that kind of failed out of NXT.
Well, I
So
mean, the purpose is the same, right? With MJF and Mystico is that MJF took the belt so that, in theory, we can have him put over Mystico, and
mhm.
isn't that the same story with Trick
if
Williams and Santana?
if eventually that happens, sure. Um,
What happens if MJF beats Mystico?
if M- okay, if ultimately if the goal here is MJF beating Mystico, then yeah, this is kind of silly. And
Yeah,
then, but I
because like
don't.
Mercedes with that belt, I mean, like she is has she has like this what I've kind of thought might happen is that maybe she'll debut with the AEW Women's International title by unifying all of these disparate championships and never lose them.
Yeah, I mean,
Because like
I
she has too many belts at this point, like that, like
I'm
to the point where it's like, how is she going to lose all these belts and make it feel right to these promotions?
I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, I unfortunately I felt this way about the Mercedes Monet title reign for a while. That I don't know what is a good exit for this. I don't think there is one, and I feel real bad because I know a lot of these promotions probably are like, oh, we're gonna have Monet as our champ, but she's gonna vacate. I feel at some point, unless she is
Yeah,
just
like no offense, like for example, no offense to the Polish promotion and to our Polish listening audience here that love prime time wrestling, but like she is the EWA Women's Champion from Austria. She is the primetime wrestling women's champion, the first one actually for that one. In Italy, she is the Bestia wrestling women's champion, the inaugural one. So they've created belts just for her to win them, even in some of these cases. Uh, So I'm like, I don't know what the exit strategy is. Like, is it that they're going to like you know, have her lose these belts to build somebody. I mean, I'm sure that she's planning to do return appearances for these promotions. But like, I think something like CMLL, she'll appear multiple times and she'll put over somebody. By the end of it, I feel pretty confident of CMLL. But for these other smaller promotions, below the Rev Pro CMLL level, I'm like, she's not gonna lose these belts, is she?
well, and that's the thing. She won a. It's not even a thing where hey, she lost at All In, and now she could start like doing a losing streak storyline and start losing these belts because she gained another one since then.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was like she lost the strong belt, and you're like, "Ooh, is this the beginning of like, the shift? Maybe this is the beginning of the shift." And then she lost it all in, and people were like, "Oh, maybe this is really happening." Then she won another belt.
Yeah. So that's not the story here. Now, is it a situation where she could just lose these belts slowly over time and not kind of mention it anymore? Because here's the thing: if they had not mentioned, they mentioned she lost the strong belt once on AEW television, and they could probably have just if they not mentioned it, people wouldn't even think about it. But she's also doing the thing now where she's counting the belts. So people are going to like notice, oh, the number went down. What happened there? She's 8 belts Monet. Next week she's 7 belts, and then she's 6 belts. So they can't just like quietly like have her lose these belts and not talk about it because she's made it so much about her character. So it's really a lose-lose situation here. The CMLL stuff, though, I will be keeping an eye on that, but I at least feel that it feels like it's at least an equal partnership. But on the flip side, I think I would like to see some CMLL talent or New Japan talent grab some AEW belts.
Well, that's the interesting thing also is about recently it was I think it was Dave Meltzer mentioned it was maybe just on Twitter during radio that there are more talents have dual contracts with AEW from CMLL than people know right now. The one that's known is Hechicero, but that he said that there are other ones that have those contracts. I think that the interesting thing for us to look at, and also for the development of this relationship with CMLL, is whether or not it is just CMLL talent are getting these dual contracts with AEW and having them locked down between the two promotions rather than with the pro labor you can leave whenever you want CMLL contract,
Mm-hmm.
and then if a core situation happens, or is it also that we have some AEW talent who are doing dual contracts CMLL? So I think that that's something that we should keep an eye on to see if the reverse happens, because we've seen it with New Japan where the reverse is the case. Although it's usually somebody comes over from New Japan and then they're like, oh well, like you're gonna get a dual contract though with New Japan, like Kevin Knight, or like Takeshita comes from Japan and then he gets a dual contract with New Japan on top of it and stuff like that. I think it would be interesting to see if any of the AW talent that have never been CMLL talent before added a dual contract from CMLL, and I think that we'll probably hear about that. Within the next week or so from one of the more lucha ingrained
Yeah.
sources.
And one thing that did happen and this is ROH spoilers for next week since it happened on the collision taping. But Shelwa, the kind of the grapply lucha guy, he's young 22-year-old in CMLL. He went to a time limit draw in a proving grounds match against Lee Moriarty, so he earned himself a CMLL, I mean a ROH Pure
RH
Rules
Pure.
title. So I absolutely would not be stunned to see him win the Pure title. So I think some ROH titles going over to CMLL specifically, I think I kind of expect that to be happening soon.
Yeah, although, hey, you know what? What's that? That's NXT.
It is unfortunately, and I
That's
do think
NXT.
it is. That's the exact same thing. You're absolutely right, and that's why I was saying I hope that we see some either CMLL or New Japan talent pick up some AEW championship titles. But as unfortunately right now, looking at the current champions, I don't know that I necessarily see that in the singles division. Maybe in the tag, sure. Maybe even in the
I think that
trios.
I think I
Trios would
think
make the
the
most sense.
trios I think that the trios titles in AEW should go to a New Japan talent at Forbidden Door. That's my hot take.
Or
Is that
CML.
I
I
think
mean, it
that
would make sense at CMLL, the trios
yeah, you
title.
could I mean, yeah, you would have it, stick around in North America more, but I think that if it's been referenced by a bunch of people about Forbidden Door feeling like that the point of it has been lost over time. I think that with the London show, that having it be a bunch of matches that are um, intra promotional matches isn't a bad thing. I think that having too many of them could be a bad thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, like Okada versus Swerve has the feel of a Forbidden Door match still, even though Okada has been in AEW for a while now. He's at day 500 of his reign as Continental Champion today. Um, eh, but like, and I would say like also Tony versus Athena has the flavor of it because it is two world champions. Still, it's two Tony Khan companies, sure, but it's two world champions facing each other. That's a forbidden door of sorts. But I really hope that MJF and Hangman is not a forbidden door because that will break it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we shall see. I think things are still developing with that show.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I
so
think I think you're right. The ROH NXT similarities are definitely
yep.
there.
Yeah, so I think that I'm gonna keep an eye. We're gonna keep an eye over the next few weeks about if any of those other dual contracts get announced or reported on
I
between CMLL and AEW.
I will say this though, I'm not seeing any TNA talent picking up NXT titles.
Correct. Yeah, that has not really been the case.
Yeah.
That's another thing though. But like I think that what you were saying with Shuhua is that I think that is just like get a win and trading wins because like if you do a proving ground match and you get through the proving ground, you essentially won the match. So,
Well, it was a draw.
he's already
It was
yeah,
a
but
time
he's
limit draw, to be fair.
yeah, but just like with the survive five with the best wrestler alive, the challenge is to survive the five with the best wrestler alive. The challenge is to prove yourself on the ground. He has achieved that. He won the challenge.
Yeah.
He achieved the objective. He compromised it to a permanent end. So I think that
The
that is the thing. He's got the win, quote unquote, and now he'll lose their league.
and the other one that we're looking at, I think, is Bandito and Hechicero. I think that Hechicero could pick up the ROH World Title, but
I
once
think that
again,
that's a
that's a dual
I think that that
contract
would be
though.
good. I think that that would be a really good thing to do at the Philadelphia show coming
I
up.
think I think so too.
Um, I think that will probably happen, but I think that that will have the belt then featured in CMLL. I think that like having ROH be the we push women and Joshis and Lucha promotion is has worked as an idea. So I don't mind where they're going in that direction, but at the same time, yes, it is the developmental or the little brother promotion for AEW akin to NXT. So was there anything else that you wanted to discuss for today's episode, or do you think that we're just about wrapped up?
I think that's just about it. It just I will say this: all these things are making the discussions on contracts a lot more interesting, just because everything is becoming more and more dual. Um,
Yeah.
if TNA and also if TNA does get a TV deal for a
Mhm.
day of the week, it would be very, very funny if ROH suddenly were okay with being on True TV.
I think that they should have been okay with that from the beginning, and I do not understand. I mean, look, I don't know his personal finances from Anthony Khan. However, I don't understand what's going on with ROH either.
I think he has in his mind how much it's worth and how much he wants. And I think the minute he accepts a certain amount, that sets what the value is, and it'll be lower
Yeah,
than he's
but I
thinking.
think I think that it's like a sunk cost fallacy for
Yeah,
him at this point because he's just thinking like, well, this is the number, and it's like, well, what if it's not the number?
yeah. And let's
You
be
know,
honest, it's not like he's probably earned back whatever he spent on this thing. Like
probably.
I feel
I mean,
like, you know,
I believe that it's been said that it's sustainable just based off of the Honor Club subscriptions.
yeah, I could believe that, especially
So
since it's sharing the production with AEW anyway.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so with that, I think that that is it for us for this week's episode of WrestleWatch. I hope everybody has a great rest of their week. And if you're watching SummerSlam, I hope you have a fantastic time doing that because I probably not. I'll watch some of them. I'm sure I'll watch the Cody Cena match later on just to see what happens with that. I'm sure I'll watch the Gunther Punk match at some point too, just to see what happens with that. And I think, oh yeah, they're doing a triple threat of Naomi, Rio, and Io because they just cannot control themselves with
Yeah,
that booking. Um, but those are the matches that like I'm interested in seeing what happens with them. Some of them more because I like wrestling than others. I think the women's match will be really good.
I feel like it has to be. I mean, they have
It has to be.
yeah. All
They
right,
have
so
really
with
good talent in that match. Yeah. So with that, I'm Ryan.
and I'm Doug. So
All
thanks
right.
everybody. You have a good rest of your week.
See you.